Good day. Chief here for Chief Tells Tales. I actually thought of another story I was thinking the other day. Yep, Chief, you're thinking. I'm talking about unscrupulous sergeants. I've got a story from my enlisted days and the stories from my warrant officer days. From my enlisted days, my last assignment as a sergeant, a staff sergeant, I had a young female who got to go to a school or a class or whatever, TDY. She got TDY for the first time in her military career, and very naive young lady. She didn't like her hotel, so she upgraded. And this put her at a different hotel than where the person, the sergeant from another company, because as a senior member, you always get the car, whether you're an officer along with an enlisted, because that happened to me once. Well, he got the car, so they got back from TDY, and of course she got that rude awakening. You know, you upgraded your hotel. I don't know how much she upgraded it by, but she had a big bill. And then the sergeant, before we got involved, he demanded money from her for gas because he was driving extra miles to go pick her up. Well, there, Sergeant, there's a problem. If you got the car, you get reimbursed for all the gas purchases that you make, regardless, as long as you don't say, well, I took a trip from here to Timbuktu and back while I was TDY. I mean, you have to not really explain your mileage, but at the same time, you can't have, well, you drove 1,000 miles, but yet you're only like, 5 miles away from where you were supposed to go to. So he demanded money from her, and she willingly paid, and tearfully paid, from what we understand. Well, she was my soldier. I was squad leader, and I had 2 sergeant first classes for dual leadership position for the platoon sergeant. That way they could take leave and they'd always be covered, and one would do this task and another one would do that task, so therefore they weren't overburdened, except for the one that had all the hand receipts. They went and talked to this sergeant, and they couldn't make this guy budge. He was just upset that he had to drive or leave his hotel earlier to go get her, because I guess she went further away rather than closer to where they were going to school or their TDY location. So of course I had to take my young soldier. She learned the hard way that you take what the government gives you for a hotel. She said she upgraded because she didn't like the condition of the hotel. Well, they don't put us in trashy, seedy motels, where you're going to have a gunfight or a couple getting it on for 2 hours and then leaving in the middle of the night, so to speak. I mean, you're put up in decent hotels. Plus, they went to the D.C. area, so she learned a lesson the hard way. I had to take her to AER. I had to borrow from AER one time in my military career, so I knew what to do. Took her there. I pleaded her case, that way she wouldn't end up crying, because she was like getting worked up because she was afraid she wasn't going to get any money, because travel section wanted their money right away to cover that extra hotel bill. I used to get, and I still get upset with travel, because a lot of those civilians who work our travel sections act like it's their cash, act like it's coming out of their pocket. You give me my money back now. Don't overspend my money. So their first sergeant was very unscrupulous in demanding money from a younger enlisted member just because that person upgraded a hotel, and oh my goodness, you had to take maybe 5 extra minutes to go get her and get to wherever you needed to go, because you're up and moving before traffic in the DC. I've been in the DC area, so I know what the traffic's like. I went there TDY once too with the car, so I know what it's like. So my second story was very frustrating. The event had already happened before I arrived. It was my last duty station as a CW4, Fort Gordon. I inherited a soldier who, I'm glad he got chaptered, but he was downrange Afghanistan. Our brigade battalion would get hit with deployments to go downrange, and they would scatter that throughout the companies, so no one company got hit hard. So he got selected. He went downrange. I think he got sent downrange just to get rid of him, to tell you the truth. Maybe downrange would teach him some backbone and a little bit of discipline. But his deployment got cut short because his wife injured herself or got diagnosed with something and had to go in an operation. I don't know what the exact circumstances are, but he had to take emergency leave. So that means he brought his weapon back with him, minimum, and maybe a little bit of his gear. I don't know if he brought any of it at all. And to take care of his wife. Well, he didn't go back downrange. And a sergeant, not one of ours, because like I said, they scattered the criteria for the deployment across the companies. So a sergeant supposedly signed for and or took care of his equipment. In other words, he was supposed to ship it home. He never did. Well, we have no proof that he did, but he has no proof that he didn't. Because even when he got back, he got questioned, and yeah. So I'm thinking that sergeant was very unscrupulous. He's downrange where people need certain stuff or want extra stuff, and I think that he saw an opportunity here to use someone else's stuff to do some trading. Now, is that exactly what happened? Probably not, but that's what happens in my mind. Because I asked the soldier, did you do a hand receipt? He goes, a what? There's a big problem. If he'd done a hand receipt and the sergeant signed for it, that sergeant would have sent it home. Because that sergeant would have had a hand receipt, and then when he got back from downrange, our wonderful specialist, I think it was a specialist, could have been a PFC. Like I said, he wasn't a go-getter. He could have said, okay, sergeant, give me my stuff so I can give you back the hand receipt. So if that had been done, that would have solved the problem. Now, like I said, the soldier would, when I got there, that part, he was back from emergency leave and didn't go back down range, so he was kind of like hanging around, to tell you the truth. I really didn't see him do much of anything. And if whatever he did was very minimal. Now, the reason why I didn't care for this soldier, I didn't express that to him, but when I found out he was being chaptered out, I was like, thank you. But at the same time, this soldier was not doing anything to correct his situation. We had 2 or 3 surplus stores not in, but near Fort Gordon. And he could have started getting some of that stuff that he was going to have to replace. But he was a smoker. So smoking was more important to him because our, soldiers get their smoke breaks. So that means they get up from their position. For the military intelligence, because you can't smoke inside the buildings anymore. That stopped when I joined the Army in '85. So, they get up, they go out, they take their 10, 15 minutes outside, and then come back in. It's like, it's the 15-minute break. That means you get up, you get back in 15 minutes, not get up, go outside for 15 minutes, and come back inside. But always went over their heads. because that 15 minutes would turn into a half hour sometimes because they'd get out there chit-chatting and, oh, we need to get back to work. So I had another female soldier. She wanted to talk to me one day. She wanted to see what I could do to resolve the situation. She didn't like my answer because she said, yeah, they're going to make him pay for everything. He lost it. Inadvertently, he lost it. He has to replace it. That goes for anybody and everybody. But she said, well, they're getting mad. You know, they're hounding him to take care of. I said, yeah, he needs to take care of this. He's going to get chaptered out. He could end up owing the military money because he didn't make enough on his last paycheck to probably pay for everything, because he was going to pay for everything at top dollar. Because you know how the military works. You know, they give you sometimes a semi-used or partly used or multi-used piece of equipment, but hey, it's still good enough to use, so therefore it's still top dollar price. So she came at me and I let her talk because I'm a good listener. And I told her, I said, well, here's the problem. I see with the situation. He's a smoker. Maybe he should give up smoking and all those packs of cigarettes. Could have bought part of this stuff at a lesser price than what he's going to end up paying for it. And she looked at me and she goes, well, I didn't think of that, but it's kind of too late to do that now, because at that time he had like about two and a half months left. And there was no celebration when he left. So, and then, like I said, you know, unscrupulous sergeant. Like I said, I don't know what this sergeant did with his stuff, but like I said, he's downrange. And when you have extra stuff and you want stuff maybe from, ooh, I really like that knife that you have there, you know, maybe he met some special forces dudes, who knows. Here, you know, I can give you all this if you want to give me that blade. I don't know what he did, but he didn't take care of my soldier. But as a sergeant, you take care of any soldier that is more or less put under your protection or under your orders, because you get to order this guy around. So therefore, he is your soldier, and he did not take care of his soldier. So this is Chief out. Freedom's not free. I'll keep trying to keep thinking about stories to tell. Yep, tongue got tied again. Seems like it happens every time. So again, freedom's not free. You know what to do.